想象一下，2年多前，亿万富翁马斯克抱着洗手盆走进推特总部，现在却坐进了川普内阁会议，还要裁掉1万亿美元的政府开支。2025年2月26号，川普第2任期的首场内阁会议彻底颠覆了传统，不仅有马斯克的超级角色，还罕见的全程开放给媒体，这到底是怎么回事？另一位科技大咖威威克到底为什么突然退出了政府效率部 DOGE？ 朋友们好，欢迎来到辛恬面对面，我是辛恬。今天呢，我们来一探究竟，还有独家分析等着您，所以千万别错过最后的内幕哦。2月26号的首次内阁会议超过了1个小时，川普总统呢谈到了他上任1个月以来，他的政府在各个方面的政策和进展，包括经济与关税政策、移民与边境安全、俄乌谈判和医疗保险等等。不过呢，他最先提到的就是政府效率与财政改革、预算平衡。川普强调了由马斯克领导的政府效率部，简称 DOGE， 在削减政府开支上的重要性。他当场让马斯克在会上呢是详细说明了 DOGE 的目标，也就是通过技术手段修复老旧的政府系统来减少赤字，达到削减1万亿美元的目标。这次马斯克的出现和在会议中的角色呢，凸显了川普对利用科技和商业方式来运作他的政府的重视，也展现了他通过 DOGE 现代化的技术来削减政府开支、最大化政府效率和生产力的决心。同时呢，也是针对前几天因为 DOGE 采取的新动作可能造成的一些内部的摩擦，以及相关的媒体舆论做出公开的说明和解决。而在了解这一次内阁会议的决策中呢，我对之前跟马斯克共同负责 DOGE 的威威克突然离开 DOGE 的原因是有更加清楚的一个理解。那么这部分的分析我会放在后半部分跟大家分享。好，我们现在呢就先来看看川普请马斯克讲话和紧接着回答记者提问的现场，是英文的原文加上中文字幕的。
One of the most important initiatives is DOGE, and we have cut billions and billions and billions of dollars. We're looking to get it maybe to $1 trillion. If we can do that, we're going to start getting to be at a point where we can think in terms of balancing budgets, believe it or not, something you haven't heard in many, many years, decades actually. And it's a big, whether it's this year or next year, I think we'll be very close to balancing budgets. And the DOGE is very important. And Elon is here to give you a summary of what's happening, some of the things they found, some of the horrible things they found, some of the theft and fraud, and we call it waste and abuse, but a lot of fraud, and probably some fraud that we're not going to be able to prove is fraud, but when you hear the names and the places where this money's going, it's a disgrace. But we've requested that a lot of people, we want to make sure that the people are working, so letters were sent out, and I think everyone at this table is very much behind it, and if they aren't, I'd want them to speak up, but they're very much behind it. Letters were sent out to people just to find out if the people exist. Do they work? Who do they work for? Where are they? Where have they been working? Have they been working for other companies or other entities at all? Or being paid by the government, so they have 2 jobs, but they're supposed to have 1. And the letter asks some simple questions like, what have you done lately? And if they can answer that, because I can tell you everything I've done for the last long period of time, a lot more than a week. And in many cases, we haven't gotten responses. Usually that means that maybe that person doesn't exist, or that person doesn't want to say they're working for another company while being paid by the United States government. So there's a lot of interesting things. It's very unique, but we have a very unique situation because we have a lot of people that were scamming our country. We have a lot of dishonest people. We have a lot of people that took advantage of a lot of different situations, and we're not going to let that happen. So I'm going to ask if it's possible to have Elon get up first and talk about DOGE, because it seems to be of great interest to everyone. I will say that there is a large group of people in this country that have such admiration for what we're doing. I got elected with a tremendous vote, winning every swing state, winning the popular vote, winning the counties by thousands of counties. I think it was 2,800 to 500, 2,800 counties to 500 counties. Think of that. And so we have a mandate to do this, and this is part of the reason I got elected. I got elected based on taxes and based on many things in the border, but also based on balancing budgets and getting our country back into shape, and this is a big part of it. So Elon, if you could get up and explain where you are, how you're doing, and how much we're cutting, and it's an honor to have you. He's been a tremendously successful guy. He's really working so hard, and he's got businesses to run. And in many ways, they say, "How do you do this?" And you know, he's sacrificing a lot and getting a lot of praise, I'll tell you. But he's also getting hit, and we would expect that, and that's the way it works. So I'd like to have Elon Musk please say a few words.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you, Mr. President. I actually just call myself a humble tech support here because this is actually, as crazy as it sounds, that is almost a literal description of the work that the DOGE team is doing, is helping fix the government computer systems. Many of these systems are extremely old. They don't communicate. There are a lot of mistakes in the systems. The software doesn't work. So we are actually tech support. It's ironic, but it's true. The overall goal here with the DOGE team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain as a country $2 trillion deficits. The interest rates, just the interest on the national debt, now exceeds the Defense Department spending. We spend a lot on the Defense Department, but we're spending like over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing; it is an essential thing. That's the reason I'm here, and taking a lot of flack and getting a lot of death threats. By the way, I mean I like to stack them up, you know. But if we don't do this, America will go bankrupt. That's why it has to be done. I'm confident at this point, knock on wood, you know, knock on my wooden head. There's a lot of wood up there. That we can actually find $1 trillion in savings. That would be roughly 15% of the $7 trillion budget. And obviously that can only be done with the support of everyone in this room. And I'd like to thank everyone for your support. Thank you very much. This can only be done with your support. So it's really, DOGE is a support function for the President and for the agencies and departments to help achieve those savings and to effectively find 15% in reduction in fraud and waste. And we bring the receipts. So people say, like, well, is this real? Just go to doge.gov. We line item by line item, we specify each item. So, and I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption. But we do need to move quickly if we're to achieve a $1 trillion deficit reduction in financial year 2026. It requires saving $4 billion per day, every day, from now through the end of September. But we can do it, and we will do it. Thank you.
Would you have any questions of Elon while we're on the subject of those? Because we'll finish off with that. And if you would have any questions, please ask. You could ask me or Elon. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I just wanted to ask you that President Trump put out a Truth Social today saying that everybody in the cabinet was happy with you. I just wondered if you had heard otherwise, and if you had heard anything about members of the cabinet who weren't happy with the way things were going, and if so, what are you doing to address those any dissatisfaction?
Hey, Elon, let the cabinet speak just for a second. Is anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, well, throw him out of here. Is anybody unhappy? We have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this. And some disagree a little bit, but I will tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled. So go ahead, Elon.
Grateful.
And President Trump has put together, I think, the best cabinet ever. Literally. So, and I do not give false praise. This is an incredible group of people. I don't think that such a talented team has actually ever been assembled. I think it's literally the best cabinet that the country has ever had, and I think the company should be incredibly appreciative of the people in this room.
Mr. Musk. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. Musk. Are there about half of the government employees so far appear to have responded to your request for what they've been doing over the past week? Is there a timeline in place for next moves for people being fired, and when can the American people expect to see results from that?
Yes. Well, to be clear, I think that email perhaps was misinterpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse? Do you have a pulse and 2 neurons? So if you have a pulse and 2 neurons, you can reply to an email. This is, I think not a high bar, is what I'm saying. This is, anyone can accomplish this? But what we are trying to get to the bottom of is we think there are a number of people on the government payroll who are dead, which is probably why they can't respond. And some people who are not real people, like they're literally fictional individuals that are collecting paychecks. Well, somebody's collecting paychecks on a fictional individual, so we're just literally trying to figure out, are these people real? Are they alive? And can they write an email? Which I think is a reasonable expectation for the American public would have at least that expectation of someone in the public sector.
Mr. Musk, roughly 1 million employees.
It's not a high bar, guys. Come on.
Roughly 1 million employees have responded so far to this email. Does that mean that the remaining 1 million or so federal employees now risk being terminated? And is it your understanding and expectation when you post a directive on X that the cabinet secretaries will follow that order? Because several agencies have instructed employees that this is voluntary or not to respond.
Yeah. Well, so I guess it was like last week, the president encouraged me via Truth Social and also via phone call to be more aggressive. And I was like, okay, yes, sir, Mr. President, we will indeed do that. The president is the commander-in-chief. I do what the president asks. And I said, can we send out an email to everyone just saying what did you get done last week? And the president said yes, so it did that. We got a partial response. We're going to send another email. But our goal is not to be capricious or unfair. We want to give people every opportunity to send an email. And the email could simply be, what I'm working on is too sensitive or classified to describe. Like literally just, that would be sufficient. I think this is just common sense.
And what is your target number for how many workers, employees you're looking to cut total?
We wish to keep everyone who is doing a job that is essential and doing that job well. But if the job is not essential or they're not doing the job well, they obviously should not be on the public payroll.
I'd like to add, wait a minute. I'd like to add that those million people that haven't responded, though, they are on the bubble. I wouldn't say that we're thrilled about it. They haven't responded. Now, maybe they don't exist. Maybe we're paying people that don't exist. Don't forget, we just got here. This group just got here. But those people are on the bubble, as they say. Maybe they're going to be gone. Maybe they're not around. Maybe they have other jobs. Maybe they moved and they're not where they're supposed to be. A lot of things could have happened. So, those people are... Right now, we're trying to find out who those people are that haven't responded. Now, there'll be some agencies, like Marco has people within state that are right now doing very classified, very confidential work, and we understand that, and we've talked, and, we're being a little more surgical. And Marco's doing a lot of things himself. And some of the secretaries we're going to be going to them. We're going to be talking about it today. We're going to ask them to do their own DOGE. In other words, they'll look in their group and I spoke with Lee Zeldin, and he thinks he's going to be cutting 65% or so of the people from environmental, and we're going to speed up the process too at the same time. You had a lot of people that weren't doing their job. They were just obstructionists, and a lot of people that didn't exist, I guess, Lee, too. You found a lot of empty spots that the people weren't there. They didn't exist. I think education is going to be one of those. You go around Washington, you see all these buildings with the Department of Education. We want to move education back to the states where it belongs. Lawrence, you have something?
So, Mr. President, I know you like competition, and I know it's early, so which department are you most impressed with? And then to Mr. Musk. That's the first one. Mr. Musk, which department have you received the most resistance from? Mr. President,
well, I think both of those questions are a little bit... well, you're a pretty controversial guy. Look, it's very early. Right now, I think I'm impressed with everybody. So far, everybody. If I wasn't in the first month, and some of them just got here, they just got approved 2 days ago, right? But I think I'm very impressed with everybody. So far, I'm very happy with all of the choices. I think that Elon has done incredibly with some groups, and some groups are much easier than others. But I think at this moment, I'll take Elon off the spot. I think that he's impressed. He said it very well, better than I can say it, that he's impressed with the people in this room, very impressed, and I am too. And it's too early to say, but I think everybody's on board. They all know. We want to balance a budget. We want to have a balanced budget within a reasonably short period of time, meaning maybe by next year or the year after, but maybe even sooner than that.
好，看了这段会议的视频，对您来说印象最深的是什么呢？请您留言分享好吗？我觉得印象最深的一点呢，就是马斯克说，从现在到9月底，每天呢，联邦政府要节省下来40亿美元，才能够实现在2026财年削减1万亿美元赤字的目标。他在那个会议上说了一句话，他说：“我们不会完美，我们会犯错。”但是呢，当我们犯错的时候，我们会很快修复。这可能也是他间接的对于上周末发邮件却没有跟内阁部长们事先沟通好而造成的一些混乱的解释。好，下面呢，我们就来谈谈威威克 Vivek Ramaswamy 离开 DOGE 的真正原因。同样是科技富豪，曾经参选共和党总统提名人的威威克，曾经呢是受川普的任命跟马斯克共同领导 DOGE 政府效率部，但是呢，就在1月20号川普就任之际他突然离开了 DOGE， 随后呢，他也宣布竞选俄亥俄州的州长。威威克的离职是引发了很多的猜测不知道朋友们您是怎么看的呢？听了川普和马斯克在内阁会议上的讲话之后我就更能够理解为什么是马斯克留下来了，而威威克却离开了 DOGE。好，首先呢，技术层面上的原因跟 DOGE 计划的演变方向和威威克的个人规划是有关系。威威克他是有个人的政治抱负的，他早晚呢会要再次投入政治选举。而 DOGE 呢最初的构想是作为一个外部的咨询机构，但是后来根据川普总统1月20号签署的行政令它是被纳入了政府结构取代美国数位服务 US Digital Service。而且呢，是设立了临时的组织，叫 US DOGE Service Temporary Organization。这个变化就意味着 DOGE 从外部的建议这么一个机构转向了一个内部的运作。那么 DOGE 的负责人呢，也就成为了联邦特殊雇员。这样的身份就会限制他参与党派选举，因为根据美国法律，联邦员工是不能参与竞选活动的。所以呢，威威克要保持他的竞选资格的话，就不能在 DOGE 任职。这是客观原因。但第二方面的原因呢，我觉得是更主要的，就是针对 DOGE 的运作，威威克和马斯克在策略上其实是不一样的。威威克的方法呢，是着重于从宪法和立法的角度来削减政府规模，特别是针对没有经过国会通过的官僚规则。他强调呢，通过立法和结构性的改革来实现这样的目标。而马斯克呢，则是更倾向于利用技术手段，如 AI 和大数据分析，来快速的识别浪费和欺诈，并且呢，他是以企业家的效率思维推动变革。
It evolved from a focus on where I was focused, legal constitutional issues, legislative issues of If you want to save a lot of money, you got to do it through legislation. If you want to look at the Supreme Court landscape for the last few years, it says a lot of these regulations are unconstitutional. That's where I had been focused. And, the way it's gotten started, and you could see this publicly as well, is much more of a technology and digital technology focus. Is there an opportunity to make things more efficient using digital technology? I believe there is. By the way, we ended up having a pretty open discussion amongst all of us that if my focus is on the legal, constitutional, policy-making functions, that's where my passion has been. The right way for me to realize my own vision is through elected office.Most of those regs aren't just federal regulations. In fact, most of them that affect people in everyday lives are also at the level of the state.
Right.
And, I think short of being a president, when you think about driving executive action to improve people's lives, I think a governor's seat is probably the single best way to actually do it.
那么威威克的宪法立法角度和愿景应该说是更切中问题根源的。不过呢，从 DOGE 这几个星期以来发现的政府运作问题，尤其是这种大规模的资金浪费和欺诈，都是需要通过高科技手段才能够快速发现的。如果说从国会立法宪法的角度切入啊，恐怕一下子是侦测不到这些的，那也不知道会拖多长时间。所以呢，现在让马斯克带领 DOGE 采用他的这个技术的优势啊，看来呢是对的。这样分析啊，威威克的退出既是他个人的选择，也是在特定环境下的一种务实的调整，但事实上呢，也是一个必然的结果。这对于政府，这对于川普政府，对于支持川普的选民来说呢，应该说也是一个更合理的一个安排。连威威克自己都说啊，这样的安排对他也是更好的。
It was an evolution of where we were headed, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, things, a new project has never been done before. So initially the thought would be outside government, use the legal constitutional basis legislation, ended up, really having an internal to government and technology-centric focus. I think that's great. And I think it could be super successful. And I think there's nobody with that focus. I really mean this. I think there's nobody with that focus that is going to be better positioned to do good things than Elon. And I think this is where it's going to be good for me as well, is if I'm really looking at a unique constitutional vision for the future of the country, grounded in my view of what our lawmaking process ought to be, how do you restore self-governance in America, how do you actually rid ourselves of that managerial bureaucracy that exists at the federal but also at the state level, I think I need to stand on my own feet and be elected to office to do it. And I think that's a good thing.
好，今天我们聊了川普内阁的惊人首秀，包括马斯克的技术革命、威威克的政治转身，还有那每天40亿美元的疯狂目标。您觉得马斯克能够带 DOGE 改变美国吗？还是说威威克当州长更有戏呢？赶快在留言区里说说您的看法，任何的想法呢，我都想听到。喜欢这期节目的，别忘了点赞、订阅、打开小铃铛。下期呢，还会有更多的内幕等着您。好，顺便说一下，不少朋友最近都问我说，皮肤怎么变好啦？是不是因为用德国面膜的原因呢？说自己也在考虑要买一些用，问是不是需要每天用？那秘诀呢，确实就在这里哦。面膜其实不需要每天用的哈，1周1到2次，加上它的这个 Demerol 的安瓶，就是玻尿酸精华液，非常好用。还有它的这个 ACE 提亮护肤霜，提亮那么真的是效果不凡呐。辛恬呢现在都是每天在用真的非常好。如果有兴趣需要的话呢，就赶快去点击一下节目描述栏里的链接，或者是直接在辛恬这个面对面下面的产品栏里面去看一看，去购买。我自己用了觉得非常好的东西，当然就非常跟朋友们分享，也希望能够说帮助到大家。同时呢，对辛恬面对面也是一个非常好的支持。好，非常感谢您的支持，我们就下次节目再见咯，拜拜。订阅辛恬面对面频道并打开小铃铛，这样就不会错过最新的视频节目了。